We'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday night interview about joy with Liam Newberry as my guest tonight. For those of you who don't know, Liam is my son, and I am super proud of him. He is an awesome kid, young adult, not really kid. I shouldn't say kid because you're.
I'm 20 years old.
I know.
I don't know if kid is really appropriate anymore.
You're grown up now. So I'm super proud of him. He is currently we can't unfortunately Zoom together because he is in Las Vegas. And we were just talking about bringing him home to Rhode Island for a little while in August. But we're going to get to go out and see him in Utah and California and Las Vegas in a few weeks, which will be very fun. So looking forward to that. So Liam, welcome, and thank you for joining me and agreeing to, I know you don't like being captured on video, so I do appreciate your acquiescing for your mom to do that. So I would love to start, I sent Liam asked me if I do these questions in order that I send them, and I always do the same format, and I kind of like it. So he agreed to put up with the way he thinks it's not structured well.
I don't know. Well, hey, man, it's your show.
So can you share a memory that brings you joy?
I mean, my life in general has been a pretty joyful one. You know, I've had a pretty good life. I assume you mean in reference to the topic at hand, which is,
it can be anything. It can be any memory that brings you joy.
See, the thing about like joy is that you know, it's hard to feel it. Like, it's hard to recognize that you're feeling joy in the moment, and it's only something you sort of reflect upon. Is like, yeah, that was a really happy, you know, time, and when you're in that moment, you just sort of enjoy it. You just sort of, you know, appreciate it, and then you don't think about why it is that you're, you know. I guess I don't know. Anytime I'm around like my friends, and it's just really, you know, really chill, and we're just talking and having fun. Like, you know, I my friend Xavier and I, we play video games together pretty regularly. I mean, he lives in Maine and I live in Vegas, so sometimes it's a little difficult to organize schedules. But you know, we 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes 4. You know, we play video games together, and that's always joyful. I mean, being back in Rhode Island with you guys is always great. Obviously. You know, just being around people that you love is enough, I think. Yeah. I don't. It's hard to nail down a specific. I mean, you know, and that's one of the reasons that I like Dungeons and Dragons so much. Is that it's a social game. It's you need friends to play it. You need people, you know, good people who are willing to have a fun time and sort of throw away inhibitions. Because if you're you know, you're concerned or worried about how you'll come off on playing D&D, it's not going to work out, man. Like, you need to let go of who you know, your sort of social barriers to do that. And that's when you see people at their fullest and at their truest, is, you know, when they've sort of abandoned those barriers that they keep up regularly. And that's one of the reasons that I enjoy the game so much. And I think that you know, that's when I enjoy people most, is when they're being them true selves. I think that's true of everybody. So you know, that's probably a good example of what you're talking about.
That's kind of funny that you know, you feel as though people are at their truest self when they're pretending to be somebody else.
Pretending to be someone else, yeah. Well, because when you make a character in D&D, it's always a reflection of you somehow. I think I'm almost certain it's impossible to create a character in D&D that doesn't have some facet of yourself in it. Even if you're playing someone completely different from you, there's going to be something there, a tell, you know, somewhere. And I think that's an essential part of what makes that game great, is, you know, the fact that people are really themselves, even though they're not
somebody
themselves.
Else.
Yeah.
It could be a elf or a wizard or whatever.
Yeah. An elven wizard.
Sure.
Sorry, continue.
So since that is the topic, I asked you if you'd come on and talk about what is, and we've already started, what's one thing that you do regularly that brings you joy?
Well, the answer being obviously Dungeons and Dragons. Tabletop role-playing games in general, I've found, because I don't just play Dungeons and Dragons. I play, Shadowrun and Cyberpunk and Vampire the Masquerade and Call of Cthulhu. There's a ton of them out there, and they're all in favor of the same base idea, which is that a group of like 3 to 6 or 7 people get together regularly, usually about once a week, and you sit down, and one of them sort of builds out a world for the others to play in, and the rest of them all inhabit that world. And then there's a million different flavors to it, but that's the basic. That's the sort of the foundation upon which a lot of those games are built. And the reason that it brings me joy. I mean, I've already touched upon how the true one becomes really sort of comfortable and honest when they're playing in that sort of environment. So that's one part of it, and another part of it is just the immense creative outlet that it provides. Like I've been playing in the same, when you play any tabletop role playing game, you develop a world for it. I've been playing in the same world for like eight years now. Like I've used the same one since I started playing, and so I have hundreds of pages of text dedicated to this. Like I just wrote like last month. I just finished writing a collection of short stories that I set in that world just because I needed something to do, and it was a fantastic creative outlet. It's like 80 pages long, and if I were to publish that in a book that is smaller than 8.5 by 11. It would be probably a couple hundred pages long. Like and it's great to just let just create something. Because when you sit down to create anything else, like a piece of music or you sit down to write a play or draw, like make a painting or whatever, like you always create it with this sort of intention of it being seen, even if you don't mean to show it to somebody. You understand that as artwork, the nature of it is to be displayed. But writing, especially writing in a format that's built around a game system, allows that writing to be like deeply that short story collection that I mentioned. Nobody will ever see that. I've sent it to like 6 people in the world, and that's it. And those people I only sent it to because they asked. Like otherwise nobody's ever going to see that, and that means that I can release all the concerns or anxieties or whatever that I would have when creating any other format of art, because I know that nobody will ever worry about it, nobody will ever see it or critique it or whatever, and it allows it to be something just for me that still satisfies a creative outlet, which is not necessarily unique, but certainly rare, I think. Like that's not something that everybody has access to. I mean, not that everybody doesn't have access to it, but like they don't employ that same technique. So like it's something that is really very, very useful to me, without being something that I can worry about.
Yeah. So the next question I wanted to ask you is, how did you get into Dungeons and Dragons?
I mean, Dad, Dad played D&D in the I believe it's like the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, back when it would have been AD&D First Edition. He had the AD&D Expert set, which was released in 1981, I think. 1979, 1980, or 1981. One of those 3 years. I haven't looked over my notes on D&D history in a little bit. But yeah, he had the expert set and the master set, which was released, I want to say like a year or two later. And when I was like, I don't remember how young I was. Young, middle school maybe a little bit before that. I pulled out the boxes from the closet underneath the game closet, and I sat down, I read through the books, and I thought, like, that's, really, really something interesting. I had no idea how to play it. Like, the mechanics were kind of lost on me. I understood the basics. I understood that there were ability scores that you could roll for, that each character had unique ability scores. Like, one character was stronger than another or smarter than another. But other than that, it was really sort of difficult. So I got my buddy Ricky, and I got Aiden and Dad in a room, and we played every Saturday for several months. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't quite understand the rules. But it was a lot of fun. So like eventually, I got into 3.5 edition, which is my favorite edition of the game. And we sort of fooled around with that for a while. And then Ricky wanted to play 5th edition. So we played 5th edition when that came out in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. And we played that for a few years. And then I went back to 3.5, and I've been playing that since. Not that that has any real meaning to anybody who doesn't play the games, because they're just slight rule changes. But
it's become a lot more popular with, I think, in part because of Stranger Things. Are there other reasons that you think that its popularity has surged?
Stranger Things is a big one. Critical Role is a podcast that exploded. It has millions of listeners, which is a big deal for a podcast. Podcasts usually don't get more than a couple 100,000, maybe a million or 2 million, but it has millions and millions of listeners. It had a Kickstarter for an animated series, and I think the goal was like, I don't remember the goal, but it was crazy high, and they funded it in, I believe, 37 seconds or something. Wow. Yeah, like they were like, the Kickstarter is live, and then they checked back a minute later, and they're like, oh, it's funded. It's done.
It's funded.
Like, they completely funded it. Yeah. Like Critical Role is just, it's so insanely massive, and I've never listened to it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried listening to a couple of episodes, and I was like, this is okay. I've heard better. Which is ironic to me because it's so insanely popular. And I think the funny thing is, the guy who runs that, Matthew Mercer, is like nerd, is like a nerd deity. He's like geek god. And I've never, I'm sure he's very, very good. And I quite liked what I heard when he ran it. But for me, Critical Role has too many players. There's like 8 players in it, which is really a lot. Like my parties are usually 4 or 5. 8 is daunting. And then it's also very, very long. Each episode is like 3 or 4 hours, which is the length of a normal D&D session. But most podcasts cut it down, like they remove filler stuff and math calculator or whatever, and they cut it down to like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So like I'm sure Critical Role is great. I don't listen.
You'd rather be playing than listening to.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that, because there are podcasts that I quite enjoy. Dungeons and Randomness is a great podcast. The Adventure Zone is fantastic. I listen to those. It's just Critical Role. I can never get into it. But Critical Role I think is a big reason for the popularity. In fact, they got so popular that Dungeons and Dragons released their homebrew campaign as official content for the game.
Wow.
So many people wanted to play in it. Stranger Things is big. Really, it's the podcast. Like D&D Live Play podcasts they make up a huge chunk of iTunes podcast library, like their total podcast library.
So you think just the availability of people being able to listen to other people play and learn, and
then they
maybe
learn.
People getting back into it from their childhood and teaching their kids.
I'm in a Facebook group called Dads and Dragons, which is for dads who play Dungeons and Dragons. Which is funny because I'm not a dad, obviously, but they let me in anyway. I don't post or anything. I don't comment anything, mostly because I feel like I'm not qualified to. given the aforementioned lack of children. But I do, you know, it's funny how many posts you see in that group where it's like, you know, hey, teaching the kids how to play, first session, you know, and it's like a picture of like a 6-year-old with a character sheet. And you know, it's heartwarming, but it also shows that like the community is growing by leaps and bounds. Exponentially. I believe 2018 was the most successful year that Wizards of the Coast has had since 2001, when they released 3.5 edition for the first time. So like it's really it's kind of entering a renaissance of sorts right now. So.
And you have a Dungeons and Dragons game after we get off tonight.
I do, yeah. I have one today. I have one tomorrow. I have one on Thursday, and I have one on Friday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What's one tip you can share about how you embrace joy that you think others can learn from?
Well, embracing joy, I mean, if you can just find something that occupies you, like joy is such a nebulous concept. I mean, you know, here, embracing joy. Like I said, to me, joy to me is hanging out with people that you love in a comfortable and relaxed environment. And for me, that takes the form of Dungeons and Dragons a lot of the time. But if you can find something like a poker game or something, or you know, like just get together. Like people nowadays, especially adults, because you know, but quarantine and all these other things have sort of prevented people from getting together. And even before quarantine began, like people just don't see their friends often enough. You know. Like, I mean, family, you know, I love you guys, and I feel joy when I'm around you, but, you know, friends are important too. And I think just getting together, like setting a date when you can get together with friends regularly is just it exponentially increases quality of life. You know, like I said, a poker game, like I live in Las Vegas, so I can name like 5 poker games off the top of my head. They're happening at any given time. But like, you know, a weekly poker game, weekly D&D game, a knitting circle, you know, cocktails and a movie, like anything. Just get together with your friends on a regular basis, because like there's a special quality to friendship that's different. You know what I mean? Than any other form of love. And I think that joy is really, you know, being joyful in life, having access to that is an important step in that sort of process.
There's actually been studies done on that, and sort of quality of life based, and researchers have actually found that people do better health-wise if they're in a strong community, and there's some really interesting studies on that.
Yeah, of course they do. Like I could have told you, I don't need, you know.
No, but it's interesting that it's actually been studied.
I don't need $200,000 in a science grant to tell you that. Like, but yes, yeah, you know, I mean, that's wholly true. Like, you know, you as long as if you've got friends and family, you go much farther in the way of happiness. You know, I have this theory that I've said to, you know, a couple of people before. I think there are really 3 pillars to happiness. There's you know, a career which you find fulfillment in. The 3 pillars of health, you know, mental and emotional, physical, and spiritual. You know, as long as you've got, you know, those, and having a strong support network. If you've got those three things, like you're set. You know, you'll be much happier in life. I don't know if you'll be happy 100% of the time. Nobody can be. That's part of life. But it really does help you if you've got those, you know, health, a fulfilling career, and family and friends. You know, those. It's not much, but it really does. I can't imagine life without those 3 things. You know, and be like, I can't imagine being happy without those 3 things. So yeah.
So when you are not happy, how do you sort of silence a sense of negativity and focus on keeping a sense of joy?
Well, I mean, silencing negativity is not the right way to go about. Like, you don't want to silence negativity. Without negativity, there is no positivity. Like, I mean, if you're trying to silence negativity, then you're trying to force yourself to be happy. You can't force happiness. It's ridiculous. You just sort of have to accept that when you are down, you're down, and it sucks, and it's gonna suck, but it's gonna be over eventually, you know, and then you won't be, you'll be happy again, and you'll be able to appreciate the joy that you have all the more for the fact that you were, you know, screwed up for a little while, and you were down, and silencing negativity is that's not healthy. That's bottling it up. That's pushing it away. That can't be good for you. So yeah,
You're very wise beyond your years, Liam.
I try. Yeah, I think it's just sort of a matter of accepting the fact that when you're down, you know, you're upset, and that's going to be a part of life.
You have to work through it.
Yeah, and then you just do what makes you happy, and you know, hopefully the emotions will coalesce, or you know, they'll sort of take care of themselves, or you know, and maybe they don't, and at that point, you know, you go to see a therapist, or you know, begin doing something that you know, you begin taking like daily exercises because exercise, there's all sorts of studies linking exercise to good health, and then, you know, happiness, whatever.
What have you been doing for exercise during quarantine? Anything? Yeah.
Bike ride. So I go out. So obviously I live in Nevada in June. So I can't do this during the day, but like right when it's coolest. So like, you know, 4 or 5 in the morning, like I go out and I, you know, bike a few miles. I bike down to Henderson and back, and that's about like 7 or 8 miles. You know, because Henderson's a nice neighborhood, so you can bike there, nobody cares. So you know, you go that way, and then you come back. And then, you know, and there's any number of ways to do it. You can you know, run in place for like, you could do that in your living room. I mean, you know, there's so many things that you can do to exercise. It's not really a problem. Yeah, I mean, you know, exercises, you can always get exercise done at some point. Yeah. You can do that living in a cave, right? So.
Well, thank you for joining me and talking a little bit about D&D. So have you recorded any of your podcasts lately, or have you given up on that?
Well, no, because Irish, my part, you know, the guy that I was hosting with, he lives in London right now, and he's a hospital worker. And during the, you know, outbreak, he's been pulling ridiculous hours, and he went through a really difficult breakup recently. And, yeah, it's just so many. Like, I don't think he'd be really real bad. I've considered like maybe could, you know, host, like, because I really just want to get the last 2 episodes done of what we started. And you know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. I was doing that for fun,
right.
And you know, and you know, if I can't do it with somebody, then it's not fun.
Right.
You know, so I've considered maybe asking somebody else to finish up the last 2 episodes with me, but it's not on the top of my priority list or anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, and I will see you in a few weeks in person.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna so for those of you watching, we're going to stay in Bryan's Head, Utah, and do some hiking in Zion and Bryce. I'm waiting to hear back from the Zion Lodge to see if we can stay there for a night, because that would be kind of cool. And then I actually liked Bryce more than Zion, but I think we're going to do a little bit more time in Zion because we just went to Bryce a couple of years ago. And then we're heading to Palm Springs, and your dad really wants to check out Joshua Tree. He's very excited about that.
Of course, yeah. So. I do too. It's, you know, greatest U2 album. Come
on. So you might as well go to the national park.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Liam. I will talk to you later. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.